My name is Craig Nash, and we'd like to welcome you to another It's a Grand Life. And I think you're absolutely going to be blessed today. We've got Arlene Pellicane with us, and she is an expert on having happy families, happy kids. In fact, listen to this from her website. Live in a happy home. I write books and speak to encourage families. Is that us? Yes, it is. I am here to help you raise a child who is ready for life, not just playing video games. And Arlene, we'd like to welcome you to It's a Grand Life. Thank you so much for joining us. And how did you get into writing about this mess of technology in families and the challenges therein, and really specializing in happy homes? What led you to this?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Craig. And I can only say that I wasn't smart enough to put this together myself. So my husband is a realtor. We have 3 children. And when he would go around showing houses to people, he couldn't believe that the teenagers or the kids were just looking at their iPads the whole time, because he's thinking, well, you're missing like what neighborhood you might live in. You're walking in a house where you might live for the next how many years. This could be your bedroom. And the kids were not even looking. They were just looking at their devices. So he very early in our parenting journey said, that will not be our children. Our children will not miss all these things. So we personally kind of had this value that even though around us we might see a lot of kids on technology, we don't want our kids to be those kids. So couple that with Moody Publishers, a wonderful publishing company, that works with Dr. Gary Chapman of the 5 Love Languages. And Dr. Chapman was seeing that a lot of people needed help in the screen area, but he didn't have kids in the home, wasn't dealing with these kinds of things at that moment. So they asked me, believe it or not, if I wanted to join with Dr. Chapman to write a book like this. And I fell on the floor, Greg, when I was asked, would you like to co-author a book with Dr. Gary Chapman? I was literally on the floor like, you've got to be kidding me. So that's been years ago. We've written 3 books together so far, and it's just been a really joyful journey. But basically the idea is, wait a minute, this is not that hard. Like you think, wow, Arlene, your kids aren't addicted to their smartphones or to social media or video games. How did you do this? And we've just kind of come from this perspective of, if you're listening and you have young grandchildren, you have a really good shot at raising your kids to like books and animals and paint and pianos and, roller skates like they used to. So that's kind of the background of our heart of why we've done this. And we've just been very grateful to be able to write and speak in this space.
Well, that's just absolutely a terrific introduction. And I remember Gary Chapman. He wrote, I can't tell you the publication, but I think 25 years ago, I taught a marriage small group with his book on not love languages, but it was on how to rekindle the love, or how to just have a successful marriage. And he was awesome back then. And I still have the workbook in my library somewhere. But that was just, it was great for both of you, right? You were living it. You've got the kids, you've been through it, and you've been very successful at keeping balanced, healthy, normal kids. And of course, Gary could use his expertise to really add value to anything you're writing about. So,
absolutely.
In fact, you wrote Grandparenting Screen Kids with Gary Chapman.
That's right.
And so how can our grandparents find common ground with their grands in this high-tech world? How did you guys handle that subject, and how have you had success with that?
I think really don't buy the myth that, oh, my grandkids don't want to be with me because they would rather be with their phones or their video game or whatever. Now, that's what they're telling you. That's what you're seeing maybe in your experience, but don't accept it. Be very stubborn to think, at the end of the day, who is my grandchild? At the end of the day, is my grandchild really going to be like, wow, I'm so glad I spent all those hours at Nana's house on my phone? No, they're going to, at the end of the day, going to be, I'm so glad Nana made me put down my phone and made me bake chocolate chip cookies with her, or read a book to me, or taught me how to draw, or Grandpa took me fishing, or they took me to the bank and they showed me how to make an ATM withdrawal because I was terrified of that. Those are the kinds of things they're going to remember. They really will. And so just put it out of your mind that even though it may feel like they're completely uninterested in me, that might be the face that they're showing, but in reality, They need you just like they needed you a generation ago when we didn't have the devices competing for their attention. They still need the chocolate chip cookies. They still need the math homework. They really need the kudos of and someone interested in them, someone asking like, well, tell me about the friends that you have at school. Who do you eat with at lunch? What are some of your hardest classes? What is challenging you right now? What are your hobbies? What do you really like? What's your favorite animal? If I could make you any kind of food, what kind of food do you want me to make? Kids need people who are interested in those kinds of things. And so those connections of being interested in them, wanting to know their hopes and dreams, supporting them, cheering them on, teaching them new skills, kind of finding out what they gravitate toward and supporting that. All of those things have not changed, even though technology is center stage. And in fact, maybe it's more important that that'll really stand out. Like, let's say the average child, they're saying now, Gallup just came out with a new poll that the average child is spending 5 hours a day on social media. That is a ton of time. It's not homework. It's not schoolwork, they're just wasting time on social media. So if that's the case, that's where a lot of life is being lived, then that experience you're giving them as a grandparent of saying, hey, come run errands with me and I will show you how to pick a good apple. That's going to be different for them and good for them.
The word that keeps coming to my mind as I listen to you speak, and it's just 100% right on, is the word engagement. We need to engage our kids. And if I'm being honest, sometimes, I'm not 35 anymore and raising a soon to be 10-year-old. And, sometimes we get a little overwhelmed or fatigued or what have you. But, if you're talking about taking them to the bank with you, taking them to the grocery store with you. And oftentimes, I'm confessing, it's easier to let them have that device than it is for me to get off off the couch and engage these kids. But it's so critical. Otherwise, they're just putting in. I could see folks putting in 5 hours on social media, and they do tell you that they would rather be on their cell phone than sit down and do homework and all these things. How can we work together in this, getting the grandparents engaged and getting the kids off the devices?
Yeah, I think set for yourself a doable goal. So don't think of it like, oh my goodness, I've got to entertain you for 4 hours, because you don't. Parents don't do that either. But if you say, I'm going to spend 15 minutes of really concentrated time that I block off in my mind, I think, okay, from 2 to 2:15, we're going to walk around the block and we're going to talk about your day and we're going to talk about what you care about. Like, really aim for those small doable windows where you are engaging. And then, I love the old-fashioned DVD player. Why? Because you put something in and you know exactly what it is. You know what your child is watching. They haven't veered off and started watching something crazy. You know exactly what they're watching, and it ends. So that is a really good way of saying, okay, what do I do with my grandchild? I'm watching them for so long. I can't be so proactive with it. I'm exhausted, all these things. Okay, well, I will put in a half an hour, show, and I'll know exactly what it is. It'll stop in half an hour. And then I'll tell my grandchild, okay, now you've got to play by yourself for a half an hour with these things. Now, at first, that might be really hard for your grandchild and they might pout and go crazy and just give you grief. But you do that a few times, by the 5th day, your grandchild will get it. Like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to play with these. And within a week, you'll probably have a grandchild that really enjoys playing with those Legos, playing with those crayons, playing with whatever so really, we are training the kids of what can you handle. And I think the more we can handle and make it as palatable as possible for ourselves, So let's say it is you watch a DVD for half an hour, and then you have a half an hour of free time with these toys. And then you can watch another half an hour DVD. And then you have another half an hour with books. Putting that structure in so that you're not constantly having to entertain that grandchild. But the younger your grandchild is, the easier this will be, right, to change their habits. But even with your older grandkids, maybe you've got tweens and teens that are really set in their ways and they're just staring at you like, what? I can't use my device right now. Good. Let them literally just stare into space for 15 minutes and have it dawn on themselves like, my goodness, I don't even know what to do apart from this phone. And really use that as leverage of, hey, I see that you're really having a hard time. Let me help you. What are you interested? What do you want to learn? And let me help you. Let's get that. Like, let's get that building set. Let's teach you to cook. Let's teach you finance so you can be an entrepreneur and be a millionaire by 30, So lean into that of showing them, hey, if you can't survive without a phone for an hour, that's probably a little bit of a concern. Let me help you. Let me help you. So be creative. Don't expect a miracle overnight, and give it time, and look for those small wins. Wow, we spent dinner together and none of us looked at a phone. That's great. Wow, you were, with us for half an hour and we looked at books and we played. That was great. Look for those wins and build on them.
So with that in mind, you've got like a lot of things going on there, little time increments. You're not saying we're gonna watch a 4-hour movie or a 2-hour movie. You're keeping things moving with the child, and as well as yourself. So, what do you have what boundaries do you recommend for grand families and technology, for example?
Yeah. And it depends, right? If your swath of time is, wow, I am with this child from morning till bedtime, then a 2-hour movie could be very lovely and fantastic. So kind of consider how long you have, but for sure, keep the device out of the bedroom. If that is a decision that you can make, regardless of your grandchild's age, that is going to be something that pays you dividends. It's like the most powerful thing you can do, because what happens when a child has a device in their bedroom and they're used to that, then they can cocoon in their bedroom. They just stay in there and watch the TV, do whatever they want. You have no idea what they're doing. They become more reliant on those digital relationships versus a real relationship with the other people in the house. And then overnight, then your grandchild has to battle. Can you imagine, if you were sleeping with something that every 10 minutes was like, hey, look at me. Hey, you have a new message. Hey, someone's doing, you would not sleep very well at all. So your grandchild, no matter what their age, even as teenagers, you don't want that phone in their bedroom so they can actually go to sleep. So it really is a competition with sleep. And when you're sleep deprived, it leads to all sorts of ugliness the next day. And it leads to a lot of stupidity overnight. So if you can keep phones, any kind of device, out of the bedroom, make that a rule in your house, that is a huge boundary that will serve you really well. And then, times like dinner time. Okay, no devices. Maybe an hour before bedtime, let's wind down. Let's read books. Let's do other things so that we don't have all that blue light and all that we're like ready to go to sleep. First thing in the morning, hey, let's not pick up our devices. Let's have breakfast. Let's read something encouraging together. Let's look at nature. Let's take a quick walk outside to look at the birds, just something to reset, to let you know I'm awake and it's going to be a good day. So I think really protecting those bookends of making the morning and evening times as device free as possible. Protecting their homework time. So if they're doing homework, this is very tricky because the homework most likely is on a device, which is really like, oh yeah. But protecting to say, okay, when you're doing homework, how can I help you so that you'll really just finish your homework so that then you can have free time? And then having specific maybe days where you say, hey, on Sundays, we're going to take a break from video games and social media, and we're just going to have a picnic outside and do something different. That resetting of the brain is really helpful for grandkids and for adults as well.
Well, I was going to say, Arlene, that when you talk about no phone in the bedroom, I'm thinking of grandparents that I know that keep the phone in the bedroom and all those blue light issues and what have you. And I don't know anybody my age that doesn't wrestle with sleep issues.
Yeah.
And having the devices nearby, whether you're 9 or 90, is not a good thing in the bedroom. True?
True. It's true.
And it's
and people will say, well, I wake up with it, and obviously people say, well, you can buy an alarm clock for about $10. So you're gonna pretty easy fix.
That is so. But it's such a serious problem, and you and your husband were able to navigate all these issues with your kids, and actually turned into a quite a resource for all of us out here with all that you have done and continue to do. And again, I hope you'll come back and share with us all the books that you're working on. But your latest book, Grandparenting Screen Kids, And you've actually written 2 books, right? One is for the grandparent, and one is what's the other one? More of
The other
a
one, so the other book is called Screen Kids.
screen
And
kids.
then the complementary book is called Grandparenting Screen Kids, specifically for grandparents. But grandparents can certainly read Screen Kids. Screen Kids has information, more in-depth information. It's a bigger book about what's happening in the child's brain. What are the relational skills your child needs? How do you reset that home? So those are things that a grandparent could read or put in their adult child's stocking, maybe over the holidays or as a gift, Screen Kids.
And are those books available at your website, arlenepellicane.com, or
You
at
can
Amazon?
certainly, yeah, you can see the books there, and they'll have links to places like Amazon, Christian book distributors, etc., to buy them. But wherever books are sold, you can look for those books.
And I know when our podcast goes, before it's on the air, we're going to have your website and everything beneath us here, and as we put this together. But I know folks will want to reach out and find all the breadth of work that you've done, trying to make sure that we have happy homes and happy marriages and contented, Lord willing, grandkids. And so I know I read somewhere where you recommend a balance between exercise and you call it digital candy. I thought that was just very well put together. And how does this work for the families that you work with? And what is digital candy?
Yeah, this is a great thing for you to use with your grandkids. You're contrasting digital vegetables and digital candy. So you could think of the exercise as that digital vegetable. So digital vegetable, that's something online that's good for you. That's FaceTiming a friend or a grandparent and them talking to you in real life, so that's learning a language online, learning woodworking online, learning how to change the oil in your car online, listening to a sermon. These are the things that grandkids never get in trouble with, that you're like, oh my word, I can't believe you're learning about a water project in Africa. These are digital vegetables. That's the reason why we say, okay, let's use these devices. Digital candy, that's all the things that are fluffy and fun and silly and cat videos and just completely pure. So at its best, it's purely for fluff and entertainment. And at its worst, it's really kind of warping and hurting your child, right? There's a lot of negative things online. So digital candy, that's the fun stuff, but a little bit a day is okay, but probably 5 to 10 hours a day is probably going to be sickening, just like in real life. If you have candy just a little bit, that's a lovely pick-me-up. But
Right.
If you have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's going to make you sick. And so with your grandkids, you can say like, hey, is that digital candy or is that digital vegetables? And let them say, oh, I'm drawing right now, Grandma, this is a digital vegetable. Or, oh yeah, I'm just watching my favorite sitcom, Grandma, this is digital candy. And start having those conversations. And really, if you're super brave, you'll say, and you can ask me, because they'll ask Grandpa, what are you doing? And you'll have to say, oh, I'm also doing digital candy. I've been surfing the news for 2 hours, versus, and that's interesting because that news could start as a digital vegetable, maybe the first 10 minutes of it to kind of get caught up. But then an hour later, as you've clicked on all these crazy headlines and as you've gotten crazed yourself, then you realize, wait, this is not good for me anymore. So thinking about it in that way, that all screen time is not equal. If your grandchild is spending 4 hours on TikTok and TikTok is serving them things about suicide and gender confusion and vandalize your school and you have to be this skinny and, body image. So if they're getting 4 hours of TikTok, that's a whole different story than your grandchild looking even at a 2-hour movie that has very good morals, or like we were joking about learning Spanish, which I kind of don't think anyone of our grandchildren are online for 2 hours trying to learn another language. But if they were,
Right.
That's obviously a different use of technology. So understand that it's not all equal, and help yourself and your grandkids to recognize that and put more vegetables in and kind of have less candy in their life.
That's absolutely great. And I was going to ask you what your thoughts are about social media platforms, but I think I understand how you feel about TikTok. That's horrible. It's
It's
what
horrible.
content is out there, and they package that with just enough digital candy, right, to make it palatable. And what is there an age that's appropriate for social media in your thought?
I'm going to laugh and say 30. No, okay. So I am kind of serious. So think of it. Every kid is going to be different. So maybe a younger grandchild you have can handle it, that they like to look at a certain thing and then they put it down. They don't touch it for days and it's really working fine for them. But maybe the older sibling, even though they're older, it's like really a trap for them. So every kid's going to be different. So do make it clear to your grandchildren, this isn't an age thing. This is this good for you? Is this really helping you? Because all of your grandkids will say, Grandma, Grandpa, I need social media so I'm not left out. So I can be close to my friends, so I can know what's happening. So we get the device because we don't want them, and the social media because we don't want them to be left out. But now, guess what? Did that really solve the problem? What your grandchild is most likely going to experience is that now your grandchild can see, oh, look at all of these things that are happening without me. Oh, look at my friend who is saying this to that friend. I thought they were my best friend. So now you've introduced all sorts of drama that would not even exist if they didn't have it. Kind of think of it at school. When we walked from classroom to classroom, we would kind of like strut our stuff and try to be, big man on campus or the popular girl on campus. And we'd go home and we'd relax. But now when kids have social media all the time, they have to be on presenting their best self, comparing. Like, can you imagine how ludicrous it is that a girl will put a picture up of herself and then ask the whole world, what do you think of this? Right?
Oh.
This is not a recipe for self-esteem or for security, because not only does social media introduce you to your peers in your school, that's what we used to just have to deal with. Now it's everyone in the whole entire world can comment about what you are. And those comments aren't limited to just the hours you're in school. You're actually carrying that around with you in your pocket. So social media is very harmful for so many reasons. And there's really nothing social about a girl or a boy sitting alone for hours with a phone, right? So truly, if you want your kids to not feel left out, you're having them be with friends in real life, give them competence and some kind of skill so that they know, like, hey, I'm a great soccer player, or I love piano, or I'm a really good artist. Like, let them be competent in something in real life. And you'll find out, my kids, our rule is that they don't have social media, period, until they're in college. So then, because our thought is once you're an adult, you can have as much social media, as much phone time, as much video game time as you want. But while your brain is forming, we want you, right, to be free of those kind of harmful things. And it's worked really well. My daughter's a senior in high school, my middle child. And we've asked her, for your senior year, if you want to get a phone, they do not have smartphones. So if you want to get a phone, we'll talk about that. And she's like, no, Mom, I don't, because she already sees she doesn't have enough time for tennis, for drawing, for reading, and for piano, and she's not a geek. Like, she is reading like you know what I'm saying? Like, she's reading things that if I said what she was reading, you'd probably be like, you let her read that stuff? So just to give you an example, so she finished The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a pretty big book by Alexander Dumas. So she loved that. And now she's reading something by Mark Greenlee, which I think is very much like a Navy ops, kind of like thriller kind of book. So she's reading across all these genres, and she reads so fast. I can't even barely stand it. So all I'm saying is, if you limit something, you think you're doing something bad, right? Like, oh, I'm not letting them have social media, but you're really doing something really grand, to use your word, is you're opening up time for them to discover their interests. In social media, they only mirror the interests of other people. They only mimic what they're told. But when in the absence of that, they get to really find out who they are. And it's a really beautiful thing.
So Arlene Pellicane, if we want our kids to have a grand life, we need to say no to the devices and give them the free time that they need to develop their musical abilities, their art abilities, their love of reading. And I know my wife says I was always reading, and I had to take the book out of my hands. Well, that doesn't happen by accident, right? You need to set those boundaries up. And there's nothing. I love this. Is maybe my favorite line of what you said today. There's nothing social about sitting alone with a device for 4 or 5 hours. Right. Lord have mercy. What is social about that? Right. But I just want to thank you so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life. And I really hope that you'll come back and see us again, and just keep us on the cutting edge of everything you're working on. I love how you have divided up the cell phone or the device usage to vegetables and candy. That's something I think we can all get our arms around. And this myth that we are really, that kids don't want to spend time with us, and we're really out to hurt them by taking them away from these devices. And the encouragement, your kids are already doing it, but it's not ever too late to put some boundaries in place for our grandkids when it comes to technology, and no social media till they're on Medicare. I think that's a good.
Yeah. And you know what? I know your grandkids are not going to swallow this. They're not going to be like, oh, I'm so happy you listened to this podcast. Here, take my phone. I don't want to be on social media ever. So I don't live in a fairyland. I get that you're going to have a lot of resistance, but I encourage you. I'll give this link to Craig at happyhomeuniversity.com. We have a little documentary you can watch for free of my kids talking about what it's like not having a phone or social media. And maybe that's something you can show your grandkids. That's a digital vegetable for sure.
I thought that sounds absolutely great. And then I'll put that up on our Facebook page. It's a Grand Life, because that would just really help everybody. So thank you so much for being our guest here today. I look forward to seeing you again. And you've been absolutely a pleasure to be with. And just want to encourage you in all your work you're doing, helping grand families and regular families, and help all of us live a happy, balanced life here in this time of cultural confusion. Arlene Pellicane, thank you so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life.
Thank you, Craig. And I admire so much you grandparents who are listening and who are so involved in your grandchild's life. That is awesome. And I want to invite you to San Diego on March 2nd. We are having a Parents Rising conference, but it's for parents and grandparents. Dr. Gary Chapman of the 5 Love Languages will be speaking. I will be as well. So we'll have that link for you too.
Outstanding. And we'll get all that information up on our Facebook page. It's a Grand Life. And Arlene, thank you so much. And be sure and check out the bottom of our program today for Arlene's website, arlenepellicane.com. There's a ton of information there. There's podcasts. There's podcasts that she's a part of, and all her books are featured there. And you can get all these resources and start to make a difference in your grand family. Arlene, thank you so much. And Lord willing, we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another It's a Grand Life. Remember to never waste your pain. God can use your situation to bless others even halfway around the world. Be sure and subscribe to It's a Grand Life on our Facebook page, as well as YouTube and any of the various podcast channels that feature the Grand Life podcast. When it comes to raising a grand family, remember the words of the Apostle Paul, who said in 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. In leading your grand family, it's going to take faith, hope, and a whole lot of love. Please reach out to me. I can be a blessing to you and pray for you, or help you connect to free resources that can make your journey a little easier.